episode 76. Before I bring on tonight's guest, I wanted to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. Hope everyone's having a great one. Also wanted to let you know, instead of doing the normal phone interview that I normally do with guests, tonight's guest didn't have access to a phone, so I had to use Skype. Unfortunately, in the process, my audio was up and down and all over the place. It wasn't steady and level like it normally is. So I apologize for that in advance. Also, too, one last thing, if you don't know already, the first episode of Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio premiered last Tuesday night on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to the channel so that you're instantly notified when new episodes of the show appear, I'd highly recommend that you do so. Tonight's guest is Jay Tucker. Jay, welcome to Dogman Encounters Radio. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Jay, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
Well, I've lived in Mississippi from I was born until I was probably 17, left and have moved all over the country, been outside the country for a little bit. I've done security work, worked as for police officer, I've worked bodyguard, anything that has to do with security I've done. I've been in almost all 50 of the United States doing security or, like I said, law enforcement in one means, manner, or another. The security companies I work for, I won't name because I don't have permission to do that.
Oh, no, I understand. How much time do you spend out in the woods?
As up to a year and a half ago, I spent about 90% of my time in the woods because of my job, what I did. I can say I worked Border Patrol for a good while, and like I said, and the way we worked was 17 days on and 7 days back home. And now that I'm retired from doing that, I moved back to my home state of Mississippi. I live in northern part of Mississippi, and I stay in the woods constantly. I'm talking about I help out with people that have problems with poachers on their land. I go scout out pre-sites for you name it, and I've done it for Boy Scout trips to teaching my own kids. Like I said, I spend a good bit of time. If I'm not at work, I'm in the woods. That's where I feel at home at. And I've seen pretty much every kind of wildlife in Mississippi and the surrounding states. I've even seen some that supposedly are not in this area, like cougars. And when I was younger, I did see a black panther. That's what we call them, a black cougar. They're supposedly not in this area, but it's mighty mysterious that the Wildlife Federation in Mississippi has a law set where you cannot, if you even point a flashlight at these animals, they can write you a ticket and arrest you.
Wow.
Yes, sir. And they're not supposed to be here, but yet they have that law on the books. We have some around Louisiana. We have some like in Greenville, Mississippi, the surrounding areas towards Louisiana and Arkansas. We do have a few small black bears, but not very many. But like I said, no, sir. I'm pretty good at identifying tracks of animals. To, like I said, if I can take show me a picture of half of an animal, I can just about tell you what it is. Before I left Mississippi, when I was a kid, we had several hunting camps that would do guided hunts for out-of-state people. And that's one of the things I've done. I was 15, and I was carrying grown men out on guided trips, setting them up in blinds, getting them ready to kill their nice deer.
I think it goes without saying you do know your way around out there. See, that's the biggest thing right there, Jake. A lot of skeptics, they'll say when someone claims to have had a Dogman encounter, they'll say it was just a case of mistaken identity. With you having all that experience, I don't see how anyone could say that.
And no, sir, because at one time when I was a kid, I grew up in the country. I'm talking about it was across the woods. It was a mile to my nearest neighbor. I would catch baby foxes. I've had timber wolves as pets and raccoons, stuff like it. Like I said, no, there's no, if you see one of these creatures, there is no misidentifying it. There's nothing else that looks like them. And the biggest thing is the eyes. I will never forget the eyes of that creature. And I was 10 foot, I was 10 foot away from it, moving down the road in a vehicle. But I'm talking about we were 10 foot away looking at each other. And there, like I said, there's no a wolf. I've seen plenty of wolves in Alaska. Montana, you name it. They don't get that big. I've never seen the biggest wolf I've seen is 150 pounds, and it was in captivity. And it still does not compare to this animal. They closely resemble, but that's it. This animal is the Dogman is a total different animal. I don't know exactly where it came from, what it is, but it's a totally different animal.
Before you had that encounter with that dogman that night, Jay, had you heard the term dogman?
No, I had not ever heard of a Dogman. I didn't even know nothing about these creatures. I had known about Bigfoot. I've had encounters with them, a couple of them. This thing does not look nothing like a Bigfoot. That's what made me. Once we had our encounter, it was me and my wife. She doesn't want to be named or come into this. She just wants to forget about it. Once we had our encounter, yes, we came back, and I'm the kind of person, I don't get scared easily. This thing scared me. The biggest reason why is because I know in my heart this thing had bad intentions because of what it was doing. There was no reason for it to do what it did. An animal does not do what this did. We came back and started researching. I researched and researched, and I finally found some podcasts. Yours was one of them. I liked what I heard. It was more intuitive. It was more about listening to the person, and the stuff that the people were describing was exactly what I had seen. So I binge listening to your show because I want to know what these are, because I have my kids that go in the woods with me. And that's my biggest thing is I wanted to know what this was, how rare they were, because I've been in the woods all my life. I've been around the world. I've been in jungles. I've never seen this, never heard of it. And it was shocking.
Oh, it's shocking to say the least. A lot of eyewitnesses tell me about this frustration they feel. They feel like the dogman they encountered took something away from them. A lot of them used to love spending time out in the woods, whether we're talking about camping, fishing, hunting, you name it. Did you ever feel that, or was it just a different set of emotions after you had your encounter?
It was a different set of emotions. It was more that I want to know what this is so I know how to protect my family from this. Because, like I said, this animal tried to attack us for no reason whatsoever. That's unusual in a wild animal. Most of the time, they will avoid you at all costs, because a fight not only could kill you, it could kill them. It made me want to understand and find out, like I said, how rare these things are, how often people see them, because I wanted to be able to protect my family.
It is frustrating when you're put in a position like that and you really don't know how to handle it. All right, Jay, let's get into it. Please tell us about your encounter, starting with why you were at the location where you had that encounter. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
Okay. I think the date was December the 10th. I'm real bad with dates and names. But the reason why I can remember that and everything so fresh is we have a family Christmas. We have a very large family, my side of the family. And I hadn't been to our family function in about 6 years because of what I used to do. And like I said, we lived out of state and never was convenient. So this family function had came up and we went to it. I live in the north part of Mississippi, and it was in the central part of Mississippi, 2 hours away from us. And the way you have to get to this is take 45 down to the Natchez Trace, and then from the Natchez Trace, you get on it in Tupelo, Mississippi on mile marker 250 and go south on the Natchez Trace, and you get off at mile marker 205 and get onto a little road called 82. And you go from 82 to Winona, Mississippi. That's where I'm originally from, which is Montgomery County. We went down there for our family Christmas and didn't plan on staying or nothing, and stayed there till about, I'm going to say it was already dark. It was probably 7:38, because after we left, like I said, it was already dark. The kids were tired. My wife was in the passenger side, and we were talking about how nice everything was. Well, we got down 82 highway and got to the turn on to Natchez Trace, and was going down the Natchez Trace. Now, at night, especially, it was between 8:30 and 9:30, I'm going to say, roughly in between there. There's not a whole lot of traffic on this road. Like I said, it is a road in the middle of nowhere. You can Google the Natchez Trace and you'll see how desolated it is. It's actually a bicycle trail that they allow cars to use. And like I said, there's no other vehicles on the road. We got on it, like I said, at mile marker 205. And it's like they come in and it's a bunch of deadfalls, stuff like that. They've took out on both sides of the road. So it's pretty open through there. The first part of the first probably 8 miles from 205 going back north. We come up on this little bridge and off to the driver's side of the road, which is the left side of the road going north, I see this animal. And at first, we're probably 200 yards back from the animal. I think it's just a coyote at first because of how it's standing and how far we are away from it. And I said to my wife, I said, look, I said, coyote. Because we were looking for deer because deer are bad on this road. Now, the speed limit is only 50 miles an hour on this road. I was actually, because I knew there were no law enforcement after 6 o'clock, there's no law enforcement and it's only rangers on that road. I was doing faster than when I was supposed to be going, and thank God I was. Like I said, we were 200 yards back, first seeing the animal. It was probably 75 yards from the edge of the road to the wood line. As we approach it, it's almost at the wood line. It's probably 4 feet. All I had to do was take 2 steps. It's in the woods. It's safe. It's away from us. Instead, it turns completely around, sees us, and starts charging to the road, to the car. And I look at my wife and said, I don't know, what is that? That's not a coyote. My wife starts screaming, it's going to hit us. It's going to hit us. She curls up into a ball on the passenger side and just holding on. We're in a 2001 Kia Sportage. It's a small car, but it's high up off the ground. It's not a short car. As we get to the animal, I'm talking about, I had it on cruise control and I've still got my foot. I'm mashing now because my whole thought is I've got to get my family away from this thing. It's trying to attack us. Now, I have weapons in the car. I always have weapons on me. I had a 45, 9mm, and I have a 308 high-powered rifle in the back of the car because it's deer season now. I knew, as big as this animal was, nothing I had it was no reason to stay and fight. I wanted to get out of there. So, like I said, I push on the gas. As we kind of meet, we're about 10 feet apart as my driver's side window comes lined up with this creature, animal, whatever you want to call it. As it's running, it's not on all fours, but it kind of hunched over and looking like it is. I said, I'm 10 feet away from this thing. I got a good look at it. I looked directly into its eyes. I looked into mine. Its mouth was kind of open. It had like an animal fixing to grab prey, like a dog, cat, whatever. Right before it gets ready to grab, its mouth comes open. That's the way its mouth was. Its eyes were a yellowish amber color. Easiest way I can describe it. Now, they're not lighting up or nothing like that. Just the illumination from my headlights is what caught that. But like I said, they're yellow looking, amberish. There's no more light illuminating this animal because my headlights, when I passed it, it's beside me, about 10 feet. I'm looking straight at it. This thing had an overly large wolf-shaped head, but its ears, the way this ears, they look like big spades on top of its head. I'm talking about, and they're a lighter color on the inside. The animal was a dark gray black to a light gray on its side. You're probably talking, if I had to estimate, probably 400 plus pounds. This animal was. You could see every rippling. It looked like a pro wrestler on steroids. Like I said, you could just see the muscle mass as it's running. The muzzle wasn't real long, but it was stuck out probably 5 or 6 inches, it looked like. You could tell the muscular in its face, and the hair wasn't real shaggy. It was probably 4 or 5 inches long, but you could see it flowing. It wasn't, real long and droopy. And like I said, as we passed right there, I'm thinking, I'm getting ready. It's fixing to hit my door, is what I think. And like I said, just so happened I had been going faster than what I was supposed to be. And if I had to been, it would have centered my driver's side door. It passed right behind the vehicle. My tail lights, without no brake lights being mashed, just the tail lights. As I'm looking in my side mirror, I can see it light the hair up on the animal as it goes past. I did not turn to see if the animal tried to follow us. My whole thing was, my wife is screaming. I'm trying to get as far away from this creature as I can, because if it would have hit us, it was big enough, it would have rolled us and probably took me out, and then my family would have been left to survive on their own. And I believe that's what it was trying to do. I believe it was trying to roll our vehicle because it was running, looked like as hard as it could. And like I said, I kept telling my wife, it's okay. She kept screaming. What was that? That was no coyote. That I've never seen nothing like it. She goes, it was as big as a cow. What was that? I said, there's no mistaking this animal for being anything other than what it is. It's an unknown cryptid wolf. Bipedal. I said, I don't know. That's why, like, when I contacted you, I told you I didn't know if I'd seen a werewolf, wolf, wendigo, whatever you want to call it, but I've never seen one before, and I hope I never see one again. That would be a blessing, because this animal was not, there was no reason for it to do what it done. It purposely turned to attack us. And there was no other cars on that road. We didn't meet another car probably for 40 miles. If it would have rolled us, like I said, it would have killed us. I have no doubt about that. That's my story.
Jay, you told me about the strange posture it had as it was running up on you. What kind of description can you give us on how it looked when it was running up on that car?
The easiest way I can describe that is, you know how a football player kind of gets in this hunched over stance, running like to get ready to tackle? That's the way it looked. It was hunched over like it was getting ready, like a football player right before it gets ready to tackle. Its front was not touching the ground. It was hunched over, but like its front paws, hands, whatever you want to call them, arms were not touching the ground. The only thing was touching the ground was his back feet. And he had legs like a dog. But like I said, I can't tell you if it had paws, feet, or what, because I wasn't paying attention to that. His eyes kind of had me tranced in right there, because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I've seen some weird stuff.
I realized that Dogman was hunched over, so it might be hard to get an idea on how tall it might have been if it was standing up straight, but doing your best, giving your best guess, how tall do you think it would have been if it had stood up?
Well, just so happens, like I said, I went out and measured, because I figured you may ask me that. From the ground, I took a tape measure and put it on the ground. I sit in the vehicle and had my son hold it up to where my eyes and its eyes met. And that tape measure is at 5'6". I believe if this animal would have been standing up straight, it would have been 7+ feet, because it was hunched way over. And like I said, because we were eye to eye, about 10 feet away, and there was no drop down on this road or nothing. It was smooth. Like I said, from standing outside, from a tape measure on the ground to where my eyes meet, is almost as tall as I am. But like I said, I took a tape measure, and it's almost, this animal standing up, I believe, would have been 7 foot tall, if not taller. Because like I said, it was the way it was hunched over.
If it was that tall, hunched over, I wouldn't be surprised in the least if it was 7-8 feet tall when it was standing up.
Broad. I'm talking about broad. It took up my whole window. I'm talking about the way it looked. I mean, it was 10 feet away from me. It's probably 3.5, 4 foot widthwise from shoulder to shoulder. It was massive. I'm talking about massive. And I said, I don't believe it would have had any problems turning that vehicle over. I believe if it would have hit it like it was trying to do, I believe it would have rolled us. That was what I believe it had intention. It was trying to roll us, stop us, and the only reason why I can think of that is to attack us. I don't know of any other reason why it would want to stop us.
Did you get a good look at its arms and its hands to be able to describe what they looked like?
Not its hands, but its arms. Yes, sir. The legs, well, I said that it was running on, looked just like a dog's legs, but it was standing upright. The arms, the arms looked like they might have been a little longer than what they should have been. From like, well, it was hunched over. It's hard to tell, but like I said, I did not ever see. I don't remember seeing, and I've tried to remember if it had hands, paws, or what. I didn't focus on it. I focused on its face. And when I seen its eyes, it was just amazing. What in the world is this, and where did it come from?
When you're face to face with something like that, just being able to tell how many legs the thing has got is doing a good job. Now, from what I understand, from what you told me, your boys were in the car with you and your wife. What were they doing when all this was going on?
They had luckily fell asleep. Now, during all the commotion, the little one sleep. You could set a bomb off the room. He's just a sound sleeper. He is not going to. The oldest one woke up and was asked, "What's going on? What's happening?" And his mom said, "Some kind of animal trying to hit our car." And he asked me, "What was it, Dad?" I said, "Son, I have no idea." I said, "It looked like a werewolf." My wife kept saying, my wife's a little more, I don't know exactly what you would call it. She's a little more into like the nature side. She kept telling me it had to have been a Wendigo or a skinwalker, because there's a lot of Native American. That's what the Natchez Trace is. It was an old Indian trail, and my grandfather was Native American. She's got some Native American background in her family, and she kept saying that had to have been a skinwalker or a Wendigo. But I don't know what exactly this animal was, but the descriptions from your radio show are the closest things that I have heard. And the picture I'm looking at right now from your site, if it was hunched over running forward, it would be a very, very, if it was in a lineup, it would get picked.
The illustrator who created that logo for me, Chris Chin, he also created a side profile of that subject in the logo. I want to send that to you, and I'm also going to post that on the YouTube version of the show so the listeners can get a chance to take a look at that and see what I'm talking about. After you have a chance to see that illustration, I want you to let me know what you think. If that kind of matches what you're talking about here tonight, I'll bet it does.
If you'll email them to me, I'll sure look at them and I'll give you an answer, yes, no. But like I said, from what I'm looking at right now, while I'm talking to you, like I said, if it was in a police lineup, it would get picked as number one suspect. I'd never heard of these creatures before. I didn't know how until I got to researching it. These things, it seems like every year, like I was telling you before, every year it seems like the sightings and occurrences and encounters keep growing. I don't know if more people are just coming out or they're just showing up more. But like I said, I've been in the woods all over the place. I never have run into anything like this. I've never seen signs in the woods, and I've tracked everything you can think of, from humans to dogs to you name it, and I've tracked it.
Jay, after you had that encounter, I'm sure like anyone else who sees one of these things, you dove headlong into a search for information. How did it go?
Because I didn't know exactly what to call it or what it was. So we started searching. Me and my wife, like I said, we helped. She was on a computer, I'm on an iPad, and we would put in like werewolves in Mississippi, Wendigo, skinwalkers, strange bipedal creatures in Mississippi. And like I said, it was a lot of reading and figuring out, well, no, this ain't what I saw, or this doesn't sound right, or this sounds kind of hokey. And like I said, and then I got into, like I said, I run across the name Dogman on one of the sites. I'm not exactly sure what site that was. I think it was off of Google. I know that. Oh, I put in Sasquatch in Mississippi sightings because I was just trying to find out anything in that area people had seen. And Dogman came up. And I'm thinking, okay, what is Dogman? So I click on it and I start searching that. And some of the descriptions were close. And like I said, I've seen Sasquatches several times. What they were describing was not a Sasquatch. I've never seen a Sasquatch with a muzzle, like a dog. Now, I come across some stuff that said that there's several different kinds of Sasquatches. I'm not saying there's not. I'm not no expert. And as a matter of fact, I don't think there is no experts on Sasquatch or none of this stuff because we don't have one to study. But I found the Dogman on there, and I put in a couple searches, and your show, Dogman Encounters, popped up. And I clicked on it, and it carried me to YouTube. And I started listening to one of your episodes. I think it was episode 5. And I'm like, that sounds real close to, what I saw. And so I just typed in Dogman Encounters, and I started binge listening to all your shows. And I'm like, that's got to be what it was. What the hell is Dogman? And like I said, that's the reason why I contacted you. When I contacted you, like I told you, I don't know if I seen a werewolf, Wendigo, what I saw. But this is what it looked like when you contacted me. I told you. And you told me that sounds right. But like I said, the other thing I left off on its ears. Like I said, they were spade-shaped, but the way its ears looked were giant. If you took a bobcat's ears, how they had the tufts of hair comes off the ends, that's the way this thing, his ears, it ended with little tufts of hair coming off the end of its ears. But I'm talking, they looked like they were probably the size of my hand. And they went up as a spade shape. That's not a normal wolf's ears look in the wild. These things are almost right on top of its head, the way it looked. And as it gets closer to the vehicle, it kind of leans them down like, an animal does when it's zeroing in on its prey. That's what it done.
I'm sure since you're moving down the road so fast and you had the windows up, the answer to this question is most likely no. But did you ever hear it make any sound?
No, sir, I did not. I did not hear a sound, except for my beating heart. We did have the windows up because it was cooler that night. It started getting cooler, and we had the heat barely on. And like I said, we had the radio playing. Like I said, my wife was hollering, it's going to hit us, it's going to hit us. But no, sir, I never heard any sound from that animal.
From talking to you in the pre-interview, you mentioned that in the process of researching what you saw that night, you wound up talking with someone from the BFRO. Please tell us about that.
I'm not real happy with that organization. I don't mean to offend anybody, or that's not my way. But this group, they wanted to tell me that I saw a Bigfoot, and I tried to explain to them, no, it was not a Bigfoot. And every time I would start trying to tell them exactly like I did you, what it looked like. No, it couldn't look like that. It looked like this. No, ma'am, it did not, because it was a lady. No, and then she got me on the phone with this other guy that was there. And I just told him, I said, look, I thank y'all for y'all's time. I'm sorry I wasted y'all's time, but I won't contact y'all anymore, and don't contact me. And hung up the phone. Like I said, they wouldn't listen. They wanted to change my story to fit what they wanted it to. And their whole thing was, is that public land? Do you think we could go out and do it? Would you be interested in going back on an investment? Lady, I don't want to mess with this thing. No, I'm not, and I wouldn't advise you to go out and mess with it. Like I said, these people that go out and try to call in Bigfoot and stuff like that, you're not going to go out and try to call in a wild grizzly bear, are you? And try to film it up close, or no. They're wild animals. If you don't leave them alone, they're going to make you leave them alone. It's the only thing their only course is to attack you, to hurt you, to kill you, to make you leave them alone. And I don't believe these things like in Sasquatch. I've only ever seen one by itself, and it was a juvenile. I mean, it wasn't a juvenile. It was a full-grown male, and we had teed it off majorly. Any other time, juveniles, whatever, it's not the one that you see that you got to worry about. It's the other ones, because if you make an aggressive move, I have no doubt that would be the last mistake you ever make. I believe maybe these dogmen may do the same thing. If they're anything like a wolf, if people want to think they're just a giant wolf, well, wolves don't travel alone. They're pack animals. You have an alpha and an omega, and then you have underlings. They don't hunt alone. They don't do nothing alone. They don't live alone. So if people want to think they're a giant wolf, okay, think they're a giant wolf. What do wolves do? They hunt in packs.
Through the course of this encounter, did you ever get the impression that it might not have been alone, that there might have been another one nearby?
No, sir, I didn't really think of that. My whole thing was thinking I've got to get as much distance in between me and this creature because my family's with me. That was my whole thing. I've got to get my family out of here. And, things might have been different if I wouldn't have my family. I might not have been so panicky. I knew as soon as I figured out this was not what I thought it was, and it was coming at us. And as it gets to you, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's not nothing you've ever seen before. And like I said, just the mass of this animal and its eyes, I knew there was nothing I could have done. Nothing. I could have emptied everything I had at it. And I don't believe it would have helped. And like I said, my whole thing was my family. I've got to get them out of here. Like I said, I never looked back to even see if it was following us, if what it was doing. My whole thing was hopefully it will stay there, and I'm going as fast as this little thing will go. And I didn't slow down for a long time until my wife finally told me, can you please slow down before you wreck us? And I really don't want to be stranded out here. So I backed off. Still, I was doing faster than what I should have been doing. But like I said, my wife, her whole thing was she helped me try to figure out what it was for her peace of mind. She just wants to forget it ever happened. And she really didn't, like I said, she really doesn't want to discuss it because it scared her. She'll tell you, it's scared. I just don't want to have nothing to do with it.
Oh, no one could blame her for being so upset after seeing something like that that's not supposed to exist.
Like I said, when I decided I wanted to contact you, it was to get the story out there to let people know these things are out there. Somebody needs to know. Because what if I'd have been broke down on the side of the road changing a tire and this thing would have come up? If for some reason that car would have stopped, it would not have been good. I know it wouldn't have. I've been in bad situations before, and I can tell you it would not have ended good for us. I don't believe there's nothing I could have done to protect my family.
If it did decide to attack you, there wouldn't have been anything you could have done to protect yourself or your family, unfortunately. Now, after having this encounter, how has that affected your ability to go out into the woods and do whatever you normally would have done before you had this encounter?
It's made me look around more, but it hasn't stopped me. Like this weekend, I acquired land up here where like I said, I just bought a house and moved to the northern part of Mississippi. I don't know if you want me to disclose where that is, but like I said, I acquired 260 acres up here, and part of that acquired, and I have control of it. We had problems with illegal hunters, hunting clubs and stuff, and they would go out and set in snares and stuff like that. I went out this weekend, scouted out, removed snares, but it's made me think more about looking around because I don't know what signs to look for in the woods to know if these animals are even in the woods with me. That's the biggest thing. I know what to look for most times, and that's what I look for, for the danger. I know what to look for when a man sets a snare. And once you know, it's kind of like putting a big flashing beacon out there. This land that I'm talking about, no one legally has been on this 260 acres in 15 years since it was cut. You're talking about pine trees growing wild for 15 years. The undergrowth is so thick you have to take a machete or a Kaiser blade to cut your way in just to make a trail. Or unless you can find a deer trail that you have to belly crawl through to get through. It's not going to deter me. Like I said, I'm more interested in finding out what these animals are, what to look for to avoid these animals, because this is a predator, no doubt about it. And I don't think I can hurt this predator. I really don't want to hurt this predator. I was always brought up, if you're not going to eat it, there's no reason to kill it. If I knew there was one on this land, I would avoid that area like the Black Plague. Because, like I said, if long as you're not making yourself trying to come into its area and take its food source or be a threat to it in kind of way, most predators will leave you alone. Now, this, I don't know if it will or not. It would probably just soon attack you as look at you. But I said, it's not changed me. Now, I haven't took my kids out since that, but we had tornadoes and stuff tonight. We're going in the woods deer hunting tomorrow morning.
When you told your kids about what you had seen that night when they were sleeping in that back seat, what was their reaction? How did they respond to that?
My oldest one, unfortunately, takes after his father, and he doesn't have sense to be scared when he should. He wanted to turn around and go back to see exactly if it was still there or see if we could find prints. His mama was very adamant and no. She used a few other words than that, but it was no. The little one, he's kind of worried and scared because he asked me, matter of fact, earlier, he said if we want to cross one of those big wolves, is what he calls it, what are we going to do? I said, if it doesn't see us, we're not going to act like we see it. We're going to leave it alone. But I don't think I haven't seen any signs out where we are, so I think we'll be all right.
Oh, I'm sure you will be. Knowing what you know now, having seen what you saw that night, what do you think about these people who go out into the woods looking for these things?
I think they're asking for trouble. They're not a pet. That's like the Bigfoot thing. Yes, I've seen them on several different occasions have actually tracked a juvenile, thinking when I first got into tracking, I thought I was tracking actually a human, a poacher, but it wasn't. It was a juvenile Sasquatch. These people that go out and look for these animals, they're going to keep looking and they're going to find something they don't want to find. This animal, like I said, is not a pet. Going out calling to it, thinking, oh, it's going to come up to you, and I don't know what they're wanting, but you don't go out and call a grizzly bear in and try to have a conversation with it. These things I believe, are worse than a grizzly.
Well, that makes two of us. You talked about your wife and how she reacted when you saw that Dogman that night. Let's get into how she dealt with that encounter a little bit here. Did she do anything special to try and help herself get over the trauma of that encounter, or did she just basically rely upon you to dig up any information on the topic that you could find?
No, sir. She got in trying to figure it out because, like I said, when something like it happens to me, it scares me. I don't scare easily. My whole thing is I want to find out what it is. My fight or flight, like I said, I had my kids and my wife with me. That's the reason why, like I said, I didn't want to stick around to find out or even attempt to try to fight this thing. I was thinking of them. But normally, that's not my instinct. My instinct is to stay there and stand my ground. That's just what I've always been taught in my training. Running usually from a wild animal is the worst thing you can do because it just brings in their instinct to hunt. This, though, was a different story. I believe if I would have stood my ground, I believe if I would have had whatever weapon, I could have dumped everything I had into it, and it wouldn't have helped me. I would probably just made it even madder.
Yeah, you're probably right. Having received as many stories as I have from people who have tried shooting at one of these things, some with some pretty formidable weaponry, and not having the desired effect, I kind of cringe when I hear people talk about heading out into the woods with a 45 on their hip as if that's going to protect them from one of these things. It just doesn't make sense.
No, sir. A 45 was designed for one thing. It was designed to stop a human. It wasn't designed for an animal. That's what the 45 was designed for. When they designed that gun, they were having the Filipino Wars, and what our servicemen were carrying for 38 specials and stuff, they'd hit them and they'd keep coming at them and attack them. They brought out the 45s. You could hit somebody in the shoulder with it, and they're going down. They don't want to fight no more. My dad is no such thing as an ex-Marine, excuse me for that, to all the Marines. He did 4 tours in Vietnam with a Ford Recon Scout Sniper. I said, and I learned a lot of my stuff from him and from my grandfather that fought in the Korean Wars. And I said, people that go out and looking for these things, they're looking for trouble. And if they keep on, you're probably not going to ever hear from them when they go out one time.
Having seen what you saw that night, seeing what that dogman looks like and must be capable of, can you imagine one of these people who's so ill prepared for an encounter being out there face to face in the middle of the woods with one of these things with nowhere to go, no way to protect themselves?
And this may sound harsh to some people. My suggestion to somebody that finds yourself out there with a weapon, this thing comes at you, you have nowhere to go, your best bet is to use your weapon on yourself. that would be my suggestion, because like I said, I'm very familiar with weapons. I'm very familiar with what weapons do. I don't know of anything but a 50 caliber Barrett that I'd feel comfortable shooting this thing with, and I don't know very many people that have those.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
The only thing I can think of, Vic, is these animals are out there. I don't know what they are. I would love to know what they are just to satisfy my curiosity. But I believe they need to be left alone if you can leave them alone. There's no reason to go out and anger these animals, because if you anger them, and I don't know what, well, I said this thing was already teed off or something. I don't know what its thing was, but just think if it came into an urban environment. You can make an animal mad enough that they will get aggressive enough to track you and follow you. And animals can track you for a long way, especially predatory animals. So I believe they need to be left alone. If you have an encounter, come here. Tell Vic about it to let other people know, hey, maybe when you're in this area, you may need to pay a little more attention of what's going on around you. And like I said, if you see something, back out. Leave it alone. That would be my suggestion.
Those are really good words of advice. I wish more people would listen to them. Well, Jay, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing the details of that encounter with us. I really do appreciate it.
I appreciate everything you're doing. Like I said, I just wanted to get the story out there. Like I said, and if more people would not worry about what everybody else thinks because they've seen something, until there would probably be more stories, and people would less likely to be hurt probably by one of these things, or more, and we find out more information. Like I said, my biggest thing is there's not enough information out there to even tell you if the one is in your area. I guess if I see giant wolf prints or on the ground, well, if I see giant footprints on the ground, I'm leaving that area anyway. But I said, I have not found any information except for what you told me, if one's in the area to even look for. I don't know if they make nests. I don't know how they bed down. I don't know what they do. That was my whole thing, is to me, knowledge is power. And knowing what this animal, how it moves, what it does, what its habits are, is to me better than trying to go out and hunt this thing down. I don't think that's ever going to wind up good.
Oh, I think you're right. I think going out and trying to hunt one of these things down would probably be the last mistake you make.
Yes, sir. And like I said, just because it's different, I don't think it should be killed either. I'm talking about, like I said, I'm firm believer, if you're not going to eat, if you don't need it to eat to survive, there's no reason to harm that animal or hurt that animal. And I'm a big time hunter. I love to hunt. My boys love to hunt.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, there's no reason to go out there and try to kill one of these things for what? Well, thanks again so much for coming on, Jay. I really do appreciate you coming on and sharing your time like that.
Yes, sir, and thank you.
Have a great night.
Yes, sir, you too. Good night.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. If you've had a Dogman encounter and you'd like to speak with me about it, whether in private or on the show, you can reach me at contact@dogmanencounters.com. I'd love to hear from you.